FIFA is spending over $1 billion on grass for the 2026 World Cup. One field in Atlanta is growing under LED lights because the roof blocks out the sun. One field in Vancouver needed 80 tons of sand just for the base layer. So here's the question. Is there anything in a World Cup pitch that an ordinary homeowner could actually replicate? Or is this just a different category of grass entirely? We are going to find out, step by step, with real costs attached to every stage. By the end, you'll know exactly what a World Cup standard lawn would take, what corners get cut at the backyard scale, and what it would realistically cost you. What World Cup grass actually means. Before we build anything, we need to define the target, because World Cup grass isn't one type of grass. It's a system. FIFA's 2026 pitches use what's called hybrid turf. That's roughly 90 to 95% real, living grass, reinforced with 5 to 10% synthetic fiber stitched or woven into the root zone. The synthetic fibers don't replace the grass. They hold it together. They stop the divots, the chunks of turf that fly up when a player plants a foot and cuts hard. A backyard lawn never takes that kind of repeated, concentrated impact, so this is the first decision point. Hybrid reinforcement is a professional sport solution to a professional sport problem, not a backyard requirement. The grass species split by climate. Warm regions use Bermuda grass, bred for heat and direct sun. Cooler regions and dome stadiums use a blend of Kentucky bluegrass and perennial ryegrass, because Bermuda goes dormant and turns brown in cold weather. This part absolutely matters for your backyard, because it's the one piece of World Cup science that applies directly to homeowners. Plant the species that matches your climate, not the species that looks best on television. The third piece is the root zone itself, a sand-based growing medium, not native soil. Sand drains fast, compacts less under repeated foot traffic, and lets crews swap entire sections of turf like carpet tiles. Stadiums genuinely do this. Some fields are grown off-site on plastic sheeting, then trucked in and laid down like rolls of carpet, finished sod, and all. So the real question isn't, can I get this exact grass? It's which parts of this system are about looks and performance, and which parts are about surviving an NFL schedule plus a World Cup on top of it. Let's go phase by phase and price it out. Phase 1. Soil and drainage. Every lawn problem traces back to what's underneath it, and this is where the stadium comparison gets useful instead of intimidating. Stadiums build a sand-based root zone because it drains fast and resists compaction under heavy, repeated use. You don't need a sand-based field. You need soil that drains and isn't compacted, and there are two realistic paths to that depending on your starting point. If your existing soil drains reasonably well and just needs improvement, you till in organic matter, compost, aged manure, coarse sand if your soil is heavy clay, and you grade the yard so water moves away from your house instead of pooling. For an average suburban lot, somewhere around 1,500 to 3,000 square feet, doing this yourself with rented equipment runs roughly $300 to $800 in materials and rental fees. If your soil is a genuine problem, standing water, heavy clay, poor grading, you may need a contractor to regrade and install drainage, which on the same size lot typically runs $2,000 to $6,000 depending on how much excavation is involved. This is also the stage to get a soil test. A basic soil test costs $15 to $50 through a county extension office or a private lab, and it tells you your pH and nutrient levels before you spend another dollar on grass. Most turf grasses want a pH somewhere between 6.0 and 7.0. If your soil comes back well outside that range, applying lime to raise pH or sulfur to lower it costs another $20 to $60 for an average lot, and it's far cheaper to correct now than after sod is already down. Stadium turf managers test soil constantly, tracking it almost like a lab process. It's the cheapest, highest leverage step in the entire project, and it's the one most homeowners skip. Grading deserves its own mention here. A lawn should slope gently away from your house, generally about 1 inch of drop for every 4 feet, to keep water from pooling against your foundation. If your yard is flat or pitched the wrong way, this is the moment to fix it, before grass goes in, not after. Phase 2. Choosing the right grass for your climate. This is the one principle that transfers directly from the World Cup project to your yard, because FIFA didn't pick one grass for 16 stadiums. They picked 2, based on climate. If you're in a warm season region, the lower latitude, hot summer parts of the country, Bermuda grass is the closest match to what World Cup venues in similar climates are using. It tolerates heat, recovers quickly from wear, and goes dormant and brown in cold winters. If you're in a cool season region, a Kentucky bluegrass and perennial ryegrass blend mirrors what the cooler climate and dome stadiums are growing. It stays green through more of the year in colder regions but doesn't tolerate extreme heat as well as Bermuda. Sod versus seed is your next real cost decision. Sod gives you an instant, mature-looking lawn, which is closer to what stadium turf farms deliver, finished grass trucked in and rolled out. For a 1,500 to 3,000 square foot yard, sod typically runs $1,200 to $3,500 including installation, depending on grass type and region. Seed is dramatically cheaper, usually $100 to $400 in seed and starter fertilizer for the same area, but it takes weeks to establish and is more vulnerable to weeds and erosion while it's coming in. There is no hybrid hack here. The synthetic fiber reinforcement that stadiums use isn't sold as a retail homeowner product for this purpose, and there's no realistic backyard substitute that would justify the cost or complexity. For a residential lawn, that part of the system simply doesn't apply. One more detail worth knowing if you go with sod: timing and handling matter as much as the product itself. Sod is a perishable, living material. It should go down within 24 to 48 hours of being cut, watered immediately after installation, and kept consistently moist for the first 2 to 3 weeks while roots establish into the soil below. Stadium sod farms manage this with refrigerated trucks and tight installation windows. At home, the equivalent is simply scheduling delivery for a day you can install and water it the same day, not letting rolled sod sit in your driveway over a hot weekend. Phase 3. Irrigation. Stadium pitches are irrigated and monitored with a level of precision that has no real backyard equivalent: sensors tracking moisture levels, automated systems adjusting in real time. You're not replicating that. But the underlying need, consistent, even watering, absolutely applies to you. A basic in-ground sprinkler system for a 1,500 to 3,000 square foot lawn typically costs $1,500 to $4,000 professionally installed, depending on zones and your water pressure. A DIY drip or sprinkler setup using above-ground components can be done for $200 to $600 if you're comfortable with the installation yourself. If you're not ready to invest in a system, a simple oscillating sprinkler and a hose timer, in the $30 to $80 range, will get new grass established. It just demands more of your own attention to keep watering even and consistent. Phase 4. Mowing and maintenance equipment. Pavco, the corporation managing Vancouver's World Cup Stadium, ordered 7 lawnmowers specifically for pitch maintenance, sourced from suppliers with a track record at FIFA and major tournament venues. You will not need 7 lawnmowers. But the principle behind that order is the one that matters for your lawn. The right mower, set at the right height for your grass type, used consistently, does more for turf quality than almost anything else in this list. For Bermuda grass, you generally want a reel mower capable of cutting low, often under an inch, which means a $150 to $600 manual or powered reel mower depending on yard size. For a bluegrass or ryegrass lawn, a standard rotary mower set higher, typically 2.5 to 4 inches, works fine, and a quality residential rotary mower runs $300 to $1,000. Add basic maintenance tools, a spreader for fertilizer and seed, a rake, an edger, and you're looking at another $100 to $300 in equipment if you don't already own them. Phase 5. Ongoing fertility and repair. Stadium turf gets aggressively managed because it has to survive 8 World Cup matches on the same patch of grass in some venues, plus NFL games before and after. Your lawn doesn't face that kind of concentrated abuse. But it does need a fertility program if you want it to look like a maintained field rather than an average yard. A basic annual fertilization program, 4 to 6 applications timed to your grass type and season, runs $150 to $400 a year if you're doing it yourself with bagged product, or $300 to $800 a year if you hire a lawn care service. Budget separately for overseeding cool season lawns in fall, typically $50 to $150 a year in seed, and for spot repairing worn or damaged patches, which is genuinely the closest thing your yard has to what stadium ground crews do between matches. Identify the stressed area early and treat it before it dies out and has to be replaced. So, could you actually build it? Here's the honest answer. You cannot replicate a World Cup pitch in your backyard, because most of what makes it a World Cup pitch isn't really about grass. It's about a stadium-scale logistics and engineering operation, sand-based root zones built to a precise depth, synthetic fiber stitched into living turf to survive cleats and collisions, off-site turf farms growing sod on plastic for transport, and LED grow lights compensating for stadium roofs that block the sun. None of that is designed to scale down. None of it is sold to homeowners, because none of it solves a problem homeowners actually have. But you can build something that follows the same underlying logic stadiums use, and on a real budget. Test and prepare your soil. Choose a grass species matched to your climate, the same way FIFA matched Bermuda to warm cities and bluegrass blends to cool ones. Water it consistently. Mow it at the right height with the right equipment. Feed it on a schedule instead of guessing. Do all 5 phases yourself with sod, a basic irrigation upgrade, and a full equipment list, and you're looking at roughly $3,500 to $9,000 for an average suburban lot, most of it upfront. Do it leaner, with seed instead of sod, a simple hose timer instead of in-ground irrigation, and a few seasons of patience, and you can get a genuinely great lawn for under $1,000. That's not a World Cup pitch. It's something better for your actual life, a lawn built on the right principles, sized to a budget you control, that doesn't need a turf farm, a transport truck, or 80 tons of sand to look like you know exactly what you're doing. The billion-dollar version exists to survive 8 tournament matches, an NFL season, and the scrutiny of the best players on the planet. Your version only has to survive your climate, your soil, and your willingness to stick with a watering and mowing schedule. Get those 3 things right, and the gap between your backyard and a World Cup pitch stops being about money. It becomes about which problems you actually need to solve.